Hello, welcome in another important video. I hope you all are doing great. So in this video series, we are discussing about storage in Docker, and we cover writable layer of Docker, and we also cover bind mount. Okay. In this video, we will discuss about volumes in Docker. Okay. So let's get started. So as we already discussed in our previous video, we discussed about bind mount. So the way bind mount works is, for example, this is our container, this is our host machine. So we used to create folder manually. So we took an example of a root and demo folder like this. So we earlier we were creating this demo folder manually, and then we were assigning that folder to this container. But with the help of volumes, now we don't have to create folder manually. It will get created automatically at pre-decided path, depends on which operating system we have used in our host machine. Okay, for Windows the volume location will be different. For Linux, volume location will be different. If you understood this concept carefully, the purpose of Docker is you can use Docker and run it on any platform. Okay, but with the help of bind mounts, we need this folder before we create container. Okay, so let's say this path is valid in a Linux host machine, so this path will be valid in all the Linux host machine, but not necessarily it will be valid in Windows as well. Okay, for Windows file system will be different, so there has to be some way through which we can manage this path. Okay, this manual path that we were creating, there has to be some automated way, and that's exactly what volumes offer. Okay, another advantage of this approach is, let's say you want to port this folder into another machine. Okay, let's say now you have created another host. We will say this as a host 2, and this is running on Windows operating system, and our current host is running on Linux operating system. So if you want to share this bind mount into the host machine, with the help of volumes we can easily manage sharing of volumes, and we don't even have to care about where it will get stored, because Docker internally manages its path. Okay, so in Windows it will get stored in default path. Okay, so this is an advantage over bind mounts if you use volumes. Okay, so we can say volume is more advanced version of bind mounts. It works in a similar manner. We create folders inside our host, but that folder we don't create manually. It will get created by Docker command itself. Okay, another advantage is, let's say if we don't create this folder in bind mount case before we create container, then it will throw error. You can try that as well. If don't create demo folder and try to assign this demo folder using bind mount to this container, and command will throw error. But in case of volumes, if folder does not exist in your host machine, it will create it first, then it will assign it automatically. Okay, and there are a few more benefits, like volumes can be easily backup. Also, using volumes we can pre-populate some values inside the volumes, which we cannot do in bind mounts. Okay, also we can host this volume on different server. We have created another server. This is separate server just dedicated to store our data. Okay, and we can create volumes over here, and we can assign it that to our container. So in short, volumes does not necessarily has to be present in our host machine. It can be present in separate host. Okay, and this becomes really important because sometimes volume size can increase heavily, which we cannot afford to keep it in our host machine. For that purpose we need to shift that into separate server. Okay, so this is the overview of volumes. I hope you have understood. Volumes are pretty similar to bind mount. It's just that it brings new features on the table. Okay, so let's get started with the volumes. Here I'm in my playground. Let me create new instance. All right, now let's increase its font size first. All right, okay, so this is fresh server. If I show you, currently there is no directory and nothing. Okay, so first of all, let's understand how we can list all the available volumes. Okay, so for that there is one command, docker volume ls, and if you see here there is no volume available here. Okay, so first of all let's create new volume. So the command will be docker volume create, and we have to give name of volume. So I'll give it as a my vol. Okay, so this is my volume. Okay, it is created. Now let's list again. So you can see this my volume is now created. Okay, let me clear this terminal first. Okay, so this is our volume, which is our custom volume. Okay, let's inspect this and let's see where actually this volume got created. So after inspection, you'll see the mount point is this. Okay, that means inside your host there is a var folder, inside lib there is a docker folder, and then there is a volumes folder. So this path is decided by docker itself. We haven't created this folder manually. So that's the advantage of using docker. We don't have to think about path. If we use Windows operating system, this path will be different. Okay, so since we have volume created now, let's try to create one container of Ubuntu operating system, and let's try to mount this volume, which is my vol, into that container, and let's see how it works. So first of all, let me quickly go ahead and create one container. I'll give this container name as test1, and I will use -it because I want to interact with the terminal of my container, and then we will use mount. Okay, so now here you will find some basic syntax change. Earlier we were using src, but now this time we will use source, and source will be the name of our volume. So we have created volume name with myvol, so I'll put that here, and then we will have to specify target. Target is as usual, this is a folder that will get bind with our my volume folder. Okay, so folder will be, let's say, test1. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. We just have to specify name of the image that we are going to use. So name of the image will be 14.04 Ubuntu, and I want to interact with the bash terminal. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Let me, okay, all right, so there is one problem. Instead of colon there should be dot. Okay, so let's create our container. Okay, so now we are inside our container terminal. Now let's list out all the available folders, and if you see, we got this test1 folder. So I'll switch my folder directory, and then I will create one folder with name demo, and I will create, let's say, two files, test1.txt and let's say test2.txt. Okay, so now if you see inside this folder, we have one folder demo, we have one file test1.txt, we have another file test2.txt. Okay, so we have created this file inside the test1 folder, which is bind with our volume. So now let me go back to my host machine terminal. So for that purpose, I will use Control PQ, and let me clear this terminal. Now let me first of all list all the volumes that are available. Okay, and now let me quickly inspect this my volume. Okay, now if you see, the folder location of this volume is this. So let me quickly go ahead and copy this location using Control Insert, and then I'll go back and paste it using Shift Insert. Okay, now we are inside of our volume folder. Now let's see. So you will observe we have same folders and files that we have created inside our container test1 folder. Okay, so this works pretty much same as bind mount. The only difference is the way we create these folders. Okay, in bind mounts we create the folder that we want to mount manually, but in case of volumes, Docker takes care of creating folders. Okay, Now, even if I delete this container, now let's imagine currently I have only my vol created as a volume. Okay. Now, what if I specify another name? Let's say my vol underscore test. What will happen? What do you think? It is expected that Docker itself will create my underscore volume dot test and it will assign it to this container. Okay, so let's test that as well. Let me change name of my container as a test2 and let's run it. Okay, so now we are inside the terminal, and since this is a new volume, this will be empty for now. Let's create new file demo.dd. Okay, and also let me create some file test.txt. All right, so we have one folder and we have one file inside our newly created volume, inside our test1 folder. Okay, now let's see what happens if we check this volume. Okay, let me go back into a host terminal. Let me clear the terminal first. All right, now if I use docker volume ls, here you will observe my vol.test will get created automatically. Okay, so this is an advantage of using volume over the bind mounts. If we go even further and if I inspect this my vol test, here you will observe our data volume is created here. Let me copy this and let's switch our folder to this location. All right, now if I press ls, here you will see we have one folder and we have one file inside this folder. Okay, so all in all we can say bind mount and volumes are pretty much same thing, but Docker encourage you to use volume because it has some advanced features which certainly helps us. So I hope you have understood this entire concept as well. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.